Hello and welcome to the first track guide of F1 2024. Today we're at my home track here in Silverstone, and what the video format is going to be today is I'm going to go through the track apex by apex, detail by detail, and ultimately show you all the braking zone, turn-in zones, and little nuances, details of the track. And then we're going to jump into GP mode to show you a hot lap in real life space and how I nail the track and hopefully how you can nail it as well. At the end of the video, a nice little twist to be added on to be getting a strategy for free, and I'll be showing you my recommendation for the strategy here on Silverstone and how to increase your best chance of winning the race. So with that being said, turn 1 is going to be quite weird with the racing line here on this year's game in Silverstone. On the outside of the track, on the racing line, there's actually quite a lot of bumps as you go into the apex. If you're going at full speed, it will cause the car to bottom out and lose top speed naturally because of this. So what I recommend is actually following this black line in the middle of the track, and this will help you avoid as many of the bumps as possible, increasing your minimum speed through turn 1 and carrying maximum momentum, ultimately going faster and faster because of it. Again, using as much of the inside curbing as possible, even a little bit of the red curbing, as this will help you avoid the bumps that are in turn 1 and ultimately help you to go faster and faster, like I've already said before. Turn 2 here is just easily flat out and is not something to worry about. All it is you setting up the next braking zone, and that's all turn 2 is to worry about. Turn 3, I recommend braking when the curb starts on the left hand side and going all the way down into 3rd gear. If you have the confidence, put your left hand tyres on the curbing on the outside, and this will allow you maximum track width. You can start turning in when you get over this white line on the track, and this can help you reach the apex as effortlessly as possible. Use as much of the curbing on the inside, but never touch the red part of the curbing, as this will cause the car to be unsettled. But use as much of the curbing of the black and white as possible, as this is free real estate and will help you go faster and faster. Bring the car to almost the outside of the track. You can see we're about a car width away from the outside white line, and then once you get there, bring the car all the way back over to the right hand side as much as possible, and you have a choice here. You can either be in 3rd gear or you could be in 2nd gear at the apex. Personally, I prefer going down to 2nd gear, as it helps bring the car a bit more stability in the apex, and then short shifting back up to 3rd for the traction. I find that if I stay in 3rd gear, it can cause the rear differential to be a bit loose and can be a bit unpredictable, whereas in 2nd gear it tightens up the car a little bit and gives me a bit more stability. And ultimately that stability brings me confidence. Looking through a late clipping point on the apex, as you get towards the final part of the apex, have the car as straight as possible and aiming all the way to the outside of the track and using up all the real estate on the outside of the track as well. With the green AstroTurf, your free home to find some more lap time potential by opening up the track and being earlier back to the power. Full throttle through the left-hander, again just grazing over the curbs on the inside to minimize the distance traveled, opening up DRS, and the same reasoning as at turn 1, you're going to be in the middle of the road, actually a bit further, and you can see I'm having my left-hand tires over this black mark on the track here. As you can slightly see it, it's not the easiest to see, but if we go over to nose camera, you can start to see a little bit of the bumps on the right hand side of the track. I have also covered this in a previous video talking about the physics model on this game, so feel free to watch that. But you can see in nose camera how there are a lot of bumps on the right hand side of the track. It doesn't come across that clearly because it's quite micro details, but ultimately when you're traveling at 180 miles an hour in the game, it's quite easy to feel the bumps and noticeable to see the bumps slowing you down on your speedometer on the steering wheel. So that's why I recommend keeping your car to the almost to the outside of the track, in fact, and following this black line as much as possible. As soon as you get to the curb on the right hand side, bring the car back over all the way to the right hand side and braking at the 15-meter board and going all the way down into 4th gear, keeping the car to the middle of the road on the entry and following the blackened part of the track, as this is where the rubber has been laid down and be offering you the greatest amount of grip as you're going through this apex. You can take the red parts of the curb on the inside. It's not advisable, it's not faster, but it's not as bad as you might think, and it is much more salvable to go on the inside of the curb than to be missing the curb in total. So out of compromises, it's better to hit the red parts of the curb than it is to oversteer wide and miss the corner completely. Obvious statement, I know, but the ideal benefit is to be on the black and white part of the curbing, as it's quite flat at the moment on this year's game and doesn't seem to be upsetting the car balance that much. So hard back on the power, bring the car all the way to the outside of the track, but critical nature that the car is straight at this point in time, so then you can be keeping the car as settled and prepared for the next right-hander as possible. Luffield, iconic, famous, difficult corner here on Silverstone, trying to keep the car as tight as possible for this right-hander and following the path of least distance, and ultimately this will be allowing you to get the car straight. You can see right now I'm effectively pointing my car to the grandstands, and the reason for this is while the car is travelling in a straight line, it has better grip potential and will ultimately have better traction for you to use at your disposal to get out of the corner faster, compared to if you're turning the steering wheel. This will be reducing the grip potential that you have and meaning that you can't get on the power as hard, fast and as effortlessly, to be honest, as you would like to do. So point the car to the outside of the track, and what you want to be doing is getting back to full power by the time you get to the outside curbing and using up all the road as possible. If you're back to full power in time, you can easily take the kink right and be accelerating out as fast as possible. Little detail of the track there for you, what can help you improve. Choose the path of least distance down this straight and start pointing your car towards the 50-meter board here, going down into Copse corner. Keep it in 7th gear. Despite the feeling and the hesitation to bring it up to 8th gear, the car likes to be revved out on this game and will have better power, to be honest, if you're in 7th gear compared to 8th gear in most circumstances. Flat out all the way through Copse corner, so easy, even using a bit of the inside curbing, as this can help you just travel a bit less distance, and by travelling less distance you can go faster as a net result. Through Maggots and Becketts, completely flat out, so much speed you can carry on this year's game. Don't take the red part of the curbing, as this can unsettle the car, but be completely on the red and white part of the curbing as you open up the sequence. You can go over the red parts of the curbing here, and it doesn't really unsettle the car on this corner, as the car is so heavily loaded to the outside tyre that effectively inside tyres float over the red part of the curb. But ideally, to be honest, you just want to be grazing this part of the curb. You can see that the curb has quite a high point in the middle. If you can just get your tyre just to be grazing along the outside of it, like you would do on a speed hump. I don't know how it is on other countries, but in the UK, the bump effectively cambers off and goes naturally down in its gradient towards the outside of it. And that's exactly what you can do here to gain a bit more lap time potential, is use the bump gradient off, and how you can sort of graze over it with the maximum track width with the minimal disturbance to the suspension of the car and ultimately the ground effect of the car, so you can get the maximum grip potential. Through the right-hander, bring the car as far to the right as possible. Marbles have been deleted from this year's game, so you can use up all the track, and this is so much better. So and get the car as far to the right as possible, and then ultimately you want to be going completely flat out through the left-hander and bringing your car to this point on the track to open up the right-hander as much as possible. Literally, you want to be using every millimeter of track here. The car and the game has so much grip that you want to be easily flat out for the first right, through the next left, and using that extra grip potential to be setting up the right-hander as effortlessly as possible. Small lift on the throttle down into 6th gear, and you want to be hugging this white line as much as possible, not using too much of the inside curbing, as once you're in GP mode and online mode for your qualifying lap, the tyres can be overheating quite a lot at the moment and become susceptible and sensitive to oversteer. So by using the inside curbing, you can increase the risk of having snap oversteer and ultimately losing time because of it. So try not to be too greedy with the inside curbing. With the outside of the track, using up all the road possible, and it's so satisfying when you get it right, and ultimately going all the way onto the green on the inside. And now you're going to be opening up DRS onto the back straight. Coming up into Copse corner, what is barely believable. It's barely believable, but it is just a lift on this year's game in qualifying trim anyway. It's so fast, it's so Wow, mind-blowing. It's so mind-blowing that this is just a lift on this year's game, but that's how you have to go fast, and that's how you have to exploit this year's handling model at this current moment in time. So what you want to be doing is getting to the 50-meter board, or when the curve starts on the left-hand side, and you'll be in 8th gear at the moment, or 7th gear, depending on your aerodynamical setup of the car. But let's say you're going to be in 7th gear, you'll be dropping down into 6th gear. Remember, just a lift of the throttle and have the confidence to throw the car in, and let the tyre drag and the tyre scrub and the tyre friction of the physics model to slow you down appropriately to get into the corner. You don't want to be using the inside curbing, to be honest, here, for the same reason as Maggots and Becketts, that the tyres will be extremely overheated and will be extremely sensitive to snap oversteer at this rowing moment in time, so avoiding the inside curbing can bring a bit more stability and confidence to the car as well. Obvious statement because of this: do not use the red parts of the curb on the inside, as that will lead you to being on the grass momentarily, causing quite a lot of grip loss, to be honest. Leading on the exit, you'll be in 6th gear and using up all the road possible all the way up to the right line, and this will allow you best track width and track usage and how you can accelerate out the corner. Going up into the final complex of corners here in Silverstone, you'll be going down into 3rd gear and braking when the curve starts on the right hand side. You want to be just teasing this curve on the outside for a bit extra track width and track usage. Remember, the curve is going to be slightly bouncy and slightly less grippy than the actual tile map of the racing surface, so by using the curve on the outside, you have to compensate your grip equation mentally for this as well, and trying to set up the corner as much as possible. Effectively, when you run out of road on the right hand side, you can see this bit of grass coming back over where it has not been cut effectively, or where the tarmac is basically stopping. This can be a good turning point for you as well. Down into 3rd gear, and you want to be using up all the curb on the inside. Do not touch the grass on the inside, as that will cause you a massive grip loss, and this will be down into 3rd gear. Bring the car to the middle of the road and using up as much of the curb on the inside as possible without don't ever hit the inside red part of the curb, and this is how you can go through this corner as fast as possible. And this corner will be a bit bumpy, so be a bit careful on the throttle and try not to be over exaggerated, over enthusiastic on the throttle, as it can cause you quite a lot of lap time loss if you get a big snap of oversteer, whereas being cautious, conservative, smooth and delicate will allow you a good ability to be on the throttle ASAP, using up all the road on the outside of the track, and this will be allowing you a straightforward run up to the start finish line, and this is how you nail a lap of Silverstone. Don't take the final curve on the inside that much. You can trickle it, you can tease it, you can tap it, but don't take it all the way, as it can unsettle the car unnecessarily and risk you spinning for no reason. But here is across the line, and this is a hot lap of Silverstone, briefly showing you the bumps on the outside of turn 1 that I talked about. You can see the car is bouncing around quite a lot, and this is what will be slowing you down. But now we're going to be jumping into GP mode, so I can show you how to use the battery of the overtake mode in the qualifying, what can gain you upwards of 7 tenths per lap, to be honest, and how you can also be using the best tyre management to your disposal. So now you can see we're in GP mode, and I'm going to be showing you how to use the battery basically, and how to use the overtake button corner by corner to maximize your lap time potential. So coming to the final corner, setting up the final apex as much as possible, full back to the power, using hot lap mode, and straight away to the overtake button to the start finish line. Once you're at the start finish line, turn off the overtake button, avoid the bumps, as I was saying, through turn 1, flat out again, keep it in the hot lap mode, down into 3rd gear, brake when the curve starts on the left hand side, and try to get to the inside apex, down into 2nd gear, and as soon as you're back to full power, using overtake button all the way into the DRS activation line to maximize your acceleration potential towards the end of the first sector. You can see me in the middle of the track, brake the 50-meter board, down into 4th gear, keep the car straight on the exit through the right hander, and you can see what I was talking about straight lining the exit as much as possible all the way to the outside curbing, and now using overtake button until the curb finishes on the right hand side. In 7th gear, do not go up to 8th gear, avoid the temptation, keep the RPM revs high, flat out through Copse corner. Coming up into Maggots and Becketts, keeping it in a hot lap mode, do not use overtake just yet, through the right hander, flat out, flat out again, down into sixth. Do not take too much of the curb on the inside, back on the power again, using overtake mode all the way until you get underneath the bridge here, then turning it back off for the remainder of the lap. Like I say, basically just a lift through the right hand and need sheer confidence down into sixth gear. Do not take too much of the inside curb, back on the overtake button, underneath the banner, then turn it off, down into third gear. Use up the curb on the inside and curb on the inside again, using overtake button all the way up to the start finish line. And this is how to use and utilize the battery deployment here on Silverstone to maximize your lap time potential. And this is going to be a 25.1 lap time as well, so you have a good reference for you to use at home. Showing you the setup that I was using today is just purely the time trial setup. What, to be honest, is feeling actually really nice. It's actually a nice fast setup for this Silverstone track on F1 at 23. So you can see 38.21, 75.40, 100% on the engine braking. Full left all the way. That seems to be the meta on this year's game. 41.10. 8, 7, 25, 50, 100% on the brake pressure. In time trial, 53 brake pressure seems to be, brake bias seems to be really good. And then using 55 seems to be a good balance for me when using in GP mode. Maximum tire pressure, this is this year's meta so far, is using maximum tire pressure. And for some reason, when you use lower tire pressure, it makes the tires overheat more. And ultimately, yeah, when you overheat that much of the tire and it's doing like 138 degrees in a race, true facts, I've seen it before, it's not that much enjoyable to drive, and it's not that fast either. So this is the setup that I do recommend for you using at home as well. So yes, now talking about the strategy, what I would recommend is either starting on the softs and changing to the medium on lap 11, or starting on the hard compound and changing to the mediums on lap 13. The reason and the difference between these two strategies, if you're in the top, let's say 6 positions, I would recommend going on the soft compound tire. If you're below the top 6, I would recommend starting on the hard, purely as then you can extend your first stint, have better tires for the second stint, and possibly move up the order as a natural result because of this. Something to really be critical and aware of on this track is that the battery and the tire management is going to be extremely critical, especially for the front left, and the race will be won on the final 3 laps of the race, and this is really where you'll make all the difference. If you can save your tires, if you can save your battery, then you can pretty much go as early or as late as you want on the pit stop and have a really good chance of winning. So keep in mind, manage that front left tire, and that will be your key to winning this race. Keep the battery high and attack on the second to last lap, or defend on the finale of the race on the final lap, and I think this would be a really good strategy to be winning this race with. So with that being said, hopefully this first track guide of F1 2024 has been useful, and in addition, adding this little detail about the battery and the strategy as well is a helpful addition to you at home. So more to come, more to do, and more videos will be soon. Grazie ragazzi, ciao ciao, bye bye.